Story 1. Manuel Lopez, a veteran fisherman in his 40s, readied himself to set sail into the perilous waters of the Gulf of California, also known as the Sea of Cortez, on the chilly and dismal morning of January 5, 2023. This enormous body of water has a healthy environment teeming with a variety of marine life. These seas were home to migratory animals including humpback whales, stately man rays, and old leatherback sea turtles. Manuel, a skilled diver and fisherman, made a meager life mostly from the bounty of the sea. However, in December, there was a dangerous secret lurking in the Gulf of California. A dangerous shark migration was seen in January as they moved in search of apple feeding grounds. Divers in Mexico had heard tales of these rapacious creatures for days, and some unlucky people had already experienced their awful presence. The majority of experienced fishermen decided to wait out this challenging time by seeking safety on shore until the shark migration decreased. Yet, Manuel was compelled to take a risky wager by the demands of maintaining his financial stability. Due to the huge demand for fish in the area, Manuel couldn't afford to miss out on this chance. On that fatal morning, Manuel boarded his little sailboat with the assistance of his two devoted friends, who acted as his tenders and were prepared to help him on this perilous expedition. Although the strategy seemed straightforward, it was risky. To recover his act stripes, Manuel would scuba dive to depths of between 36 and 59 feet. Manuel would have had to negotiate the choppy currents to reach these elusive gems, which surged and swirled with unbridled intensity. This prized kind of mollusk was sought for by many. He was in danger of being exposed to the watchful eyes of the sharks hiding just under his grasp as the waves roiled with raw force. Each plunge dragged him further into an unpredictable realm where danger awaited at every turn. The secret to Manuel's success lay on the ocean below, which was enveloped in ethereal blackness. The act stripes were concealed under sand and mud in a region shrouded in mystery and brimming with undiscovered riches. But this perilous territory was not eager to give up its secrets. Manuel felt the weightlessness of the water as he sank under the surface. A sharp contrast to the gravity-bound universe exists in Tum. He departed like a cunning predator. With his body flowing with fluid ease down the ocean bottom, he took a stance like a sea lion looking for food. He had no idea that this seeming similarity would unintentionally attract the notice of a monster that was far deadlier than he was. The great broad shark, the ocean's top predator, was seen prowling the seas with a sense of command. It travels quietly through the depths with a streamlined body that was designed for power and accuracy. Its predatory instincts have been honed through many generations of development in the shadows. The shark watched Manuel at all times, a watchful watcher waiting for the right time to strike. The shark had been drawn to Manuel not just because of his stance, but also because of the flurry of his frantic fishing activities. There was something important there because of the quick motions that resembled a dance of survival. As the shark evolved, curiosity and hunger coexisted as primordial drives. As Manuel removed the striped stripes from their sand home, the crowd became more and more curious in this unique sight. The intense smell of the shellfish permeated the whole ocean. The fragrance that entered the water. With each good harvest, unseen currents made their way to the ken-off plant and eventually reached the big wide shark's senses. It was a seductive smell that called out to the creature's hunting instincts, which were aroused and fueled by its ravenous desire. The enormous broad shark swam cautiously and curiously toward Manuel. The aroma of the mussels and the energy emanating from there drew inexorably closer with its beautiful but deliberate motions. The shark's senses led it toward its possible victim under the surface, like a symphony of primeval impulses. Manuel's environment will soon become a waking nightmare among the quiet depths. Unexpectedly, a massive shadow that completely obscured the sunshine above appeared. The huge shark rushed out of the depths with unsettling speed. It kept its attention on the unaware victim. Manuel most likely thrives on instinct for survival. Attempts were made to respond and escape the predator. Despite his best efforts, it was already too late. With unfathomable rage, the violent assault began. Manuel's head was severed from his body by the shark's jaws, which crashed down with a force that broke bones. And menacing mist of blood, which had flowed into the lake, surrounded the scene. Unutterable was the violence. As a result of the shark's continuous attack, Manuel's shoulders were reduced to skeletal remains. Upon seeing the horrifying scene, the ruthless predator swallowed him, instantly putting an end to his existence. The friend of Manuel was frozen with pure dread. They were unable to do anything except gape, their faces distorted with shock and astonishment. The peaceful water was suddenly turned into a scene of unimaginable violence. Manuel's dead remains were left behind as a macabre sacrifice to the abyss. The once hopeful morning was transformed into a nightmare that will live on in the memories of those who saw the vicious shark attack. They would be haunted by Manuel's cries and the macabre aftermath. It serves as a somber reminder of the ocean's brutality and the serious repercussions of tempting destiny. Story 2. Paul was gloomily looking over the shark-infested seas of Amity Point as the dark clouds hung low in the sky. Unaware of the looming danger underneath the surface, Sarah Wiley, a young lady full of life and adventure, was visiting North Stradbroke Island with her churchmates. They delighted in the beach's pristine beauty. Amity Point, a small agricultural settlement near the island's northwest tip, was situated close to the perilous Rainbow Channel, which served as the entrance to Moreton Bay. A scenic environment appeared perfect with an untamed beach, tempting Sarah and her pals to put their toes into the murky waves. The 7th of January 2006 was a gloomy day. The storm's remains stirred the ocean, leaving the water contaminated and the air thick with expectation. Henning was alarmed by the threat lying underneath the wave's terrifying force of crash. Sarah was not aware of the greater danger that such circumstances posed. She had been a skilled swimmer since she was a little kid due to the water in her veins. She confidently waded farther into the depths, fueled by familiarity, unaware of the horrors that awaited her. Boobies, foreboding omens of doom, appeared in front of her. These bouncy warning signs indicated the presence of drumlines, ominous traps used to ensnare huge sharks. Sarah should have instinctively known to withdraw, but her enthusiasm and urgency clouded her perception. Unbeknownst to Sarah, a shadow under the waves had been patiently biding its time, waiting for a suitable opportunity to attack. Unaware of the nefarious presence, Sarah was driven into her own unaware death by closing in on her. She savored the satisfaction of being near the water, the taste of salt on her lips, and the elation that coursed through her body. The lake took on a golden color as the sun started to rise. Sarah moved to go closer to the shore's protection. A moment of shared laughter and stories of adventure awaited her when she finally saw her pals again. But destiny was harsh and ruthless. Had an alternative strategy. Sarah disappeared under the surface in a split second, sucked into the unknown terror's maw. Her body was engulfed in a liquid abyss as time stopped still. She struggled against the enormous force holding her prisoner as her senses were overtaken by her racing heart, terror, and bewilderment. She emerged from the water with a frantic rush, panting for oxygen. With panic etched on her face, she let forth a primal scream that broke the calmness of the beach shark. The terrifying cry of impending peril tore through the air. Disbelief greeted the first cry. Her buddies and the beachgoers laughed as they disregarded it as a silly hoax. Dolphin poses amusingly in the water, fooling bystanders into thinking they are safe. However, as the scream rang out again, everyone in the room suddenly became aware of the impending peril. Josiah Tupel, a bold man, took action right away and dove into the choppy water despite his remaining reservations. His relative trailed after him, as though nature were working against them. The sea roiled with an invisible threat. As Josiah and Hone battled against the pounding waves, their hearts raced with fear and resolve. Each step they took forward was accompanied by a struggle against the perilous current that seemed intent to obstruct their progress. They drew closer while veering, closing the gap with every ounce of muscle they could muster. When they finally arrived to Sarah, they stared at her with ragged breaths and adrenaline pumping through their veins. Before their eyes, a scene of unthinkable horror developed. Sarah's once beautiful arm, now dangling lifelessly, cut by the predator's unrelenting teeth. A graphic illustration of the horror hidden under the waves. Blood mixed with the murky water, creating an unsettling scene of swirling crimson in the shadowy gloom. The unsightly, jagged incision made the skin below visible, showing it to be raw and torn. They will never forget the sight, since it was so memorable. As they struggled with the unfathomable truth in front of them, a terrifying reminder of the ruthless force of nature's top predator infused every action. They struggled to raise Sarah's frail body while using all of their combined power, since they were aware that time was of the essence and that Sarah's life hung perilously in the balance. Paramedics came to rescue the injured from the merciless ocean's grasp. Their presence was the flimsy ray of hope in the gloom. They made a determined effort to stop Sarah's blood from flowing, but the damage was done. She was being betrayed by her body in the face of constant assault. Her last voyage was characterized by the sound of chopper blades. It was a desperate race against time to save a life that was already fading away. As the horrifying attack's news spread like wildfire, it threw a shadow over the whole coastline. Beaches were cordoned off, warning people to exercise care and respect. Meanwhile, investigators dove into the ocean's depths in quest of explanations. There were murmurs of finger pointing and concerns about efficacy. Locals in Queensland questioned the goal of the shark safety program and expressed a dejected resignation. Consider that this disaster was bound to happen, a result of tourists' disdain for the sea's uncontrolled strength. The gathering for Sarah Wiley's funeral became solemn, a reminder of a life that was cut short too soon. More than 400 mourners attended the service. Her passing will forever be remembered for her contagious laugh and compassionate spirit, a terrifying reminder of how short life is. Story 3. Eric Norris, an experienced abalone diver, and his son Mark went out on their normal dive off the coast of Cape Howe, Australia, on a bright morning in January. The rich fauna in the waterways around Cape Town was well known. The nearby beaches and coastal dunes were home to a variety of bird species, as well as magnificent whales, playful dolphins, elegant seals, and colorful fish, while the lush woodlands were home to kangaroos, wallabies, and possums. Eric and Mark dove into the abyssal blue depths in search of endangered creatures, like the magnificent owl and long-nosed prue-spotted tail crawl. They kept staring at the ocean floor. The abalone was waiting to be found 26 feet below their prize capture, concealed within the coral reef. Eric, an expert diver, concentrated intensely on his assignment, making sure that every abalone he caught was the ideal size. Mark anxiously waited on the boat above a feeling of worry, nagged at Eric, and a sneaking suspicion that something was afoot under the waters, as he attentively studied each specimen with slow and exact motions. He was lulled into a false feeling of serenity, nevertheless, by the soothing hum of his regulator and the captivating pattern of his breath. His environment, which was a fantasy, became more and more blurred as time passed. Suddenly, a bone-crushing primeval power crashed through Eric's body. The power was so great that it seemed like a vehicle had hit him underwater. He struggled to breathe since his throat was tight. Caught in the enormous 10-foot great white shark's razor-sharp teeth, his heart was thumping in his chest as panic shot through his veins. Eric used all of Wilbauer's might to battle the predator's hold on him. He furiously gouged at the shark's eyes with his free hand, plunging his fingers deep within the creature. The predator briefly retreated, stunned by the sudden attack. Eric's lead weight vest turned out to be a godsend, shielding his critical organs from the shark's jaws. However, the break was just temporary, as the great white continued with its instincts for survival, driving it forward. Its onslaught is harsh. Eric was brutally shaken back and forth by it like a rag doll trapped in the mouth of a ferocious devourer. Eric's body ached as the creature's ferocious resolve to rip into his skin continued. Eric, however, would not give up lightly and resisted his approaching death. His fingers scrabbled at the rough skin of the shark as he directed every last bit of his misery and rage into counterattacks. His strikes strike hard and desperately. Seawater and blood mixed together, a horrifying illustration of the underground battle of Hin for survival. After a moment of intense shock, the great white shark let go of its iron hold. Because of the blending of their life energies, the water became red. The predator circled Eric, waiting patiently for him to become even more vulnerable. A smart move used by these apex predators. Heightened by adrenaline and terror, Eric mustered every ounce of bravery as he realized the risky game being played. Eric made a crucial choice. Before the fangs of death snatched him once again, he knew he had to leave this watery cemetery. He ignored the agonizing agony and carefully pushed himself forward toward the surface. He persisted despite every muscle in his body screaming in protest. Like a hideous, strange thing coming from the depths, his limbs and legs were extended out in front of him. Eric met a huge white shark when he burst through the water while struggling for oxygen. Its threatening blackish-blue glare, which was fixed on him, served as a terrifying reminder that the predator's appetite was yet unfulfilled. Mark was aroused by the worry and moved swiftly and resolutely after hearing him shout out in an urgent tone. Just in time, Mark reached out and pulled his father from the water, just avoiding the ruthless hunter's deadly blow. Eric's body was damaged and battered, bearing the horrifying remnants of his tragedy. His broken arm, broken nose, and lacerations caused by the shark's teeth needed an astonishing total of 75 stitches, which were administered by experienced hands at the Will and Gong Hospital when he was transported there. His shattered form was also repaired. His ability to persevere and his son's fast thinking were both key factors in his survival of the hidden horrors. After the incident, Eric was struck by how heavy his lead vest was, a basic piece of diving gear that had now protected him from the jaws of death. He attributed his little accessory with saving his life and lessening the severity of his wounds. Eric's tale serves as a chilling reminder of both the frailty of human life and the ruthless force of nature. Where life and death cohabit in an unending dance, the ocean's depths hide marvels and terrors beyond our comprehension. As a physical reminder of the fierce beauty that prowled the depths of Cape House seas, Eric retained the wounds of his experience ever since, leaving them permanently seared in his memory.